Alright, so today I'm going to be discussing why video game music is great for guitarists to learn, listen to, cover, and play in general. I love this type of music. I've done a lot of releases on all the main streaming services. I've covered a lot of my favorite songs. So I'll demonstrate what we can learn as guitarists from VGM. And of course, I'm not sponsored by Ibanez or Nintendo or anybody. So first, a demonstration. I'm going to use the Song of Storms from the Legend of Zelda series. There we go, and I've made tabs available for this on my Patreon. This cover is in standard tuning, so you can go ahead and play along too. So why is VGM great for guitarists? Well, when I'm talking about VGM, video game music, I'm talking about basically music from all games, so it is kind of a blanket term. What comes to mind for me when I think of it are those classic melodies, Mario, Zelda, Pokemon. What's really interesting about this kind of music is that if you have a video, for example, a movie, for example, and that has a soundtrack, that's the soundtrack of the characters. But when you're playing a game, that soundtrack is the soundtrack of you beating the level. Family Jewels said this, if you're curious. But that really resonated with me. And on top of that, this kind of stuff is just really fun to play. And if you're taking it to the next step, not just learning it, but aiming to cover it, either by yourself or with a band, there's so many great songwriting challenges and exercises you can learn from this. For example, one melody or a few melodies from a simple loop, especially with the older songs, into a full cohesive song. Something that won't bore the audience, will be interesting. So learning to turn these songs into full ideas, let's go into that a little bit. And we can put this in the context of that Song of Storms cover I did. I know it's not a full 4-minute song or something like that, but it doesn't have to be a 20-minute epic. And I did this just for the sake of the conversation for this video. So in this case, you have that melody. The whole point of the song is just to be a loop, just to go around and around and around. What would you do to cover this song? How would you take this one simple melody, these few chords, and turn it into something bigger? My answer was to start with this melody and have the original chords too, to some extent. Already I ran into a challenge. We're in D minor, and the first, it goes 1, 2, 3 up the minor scale. But that second chord, I picked a diminished thing. And excuse me, I'm a self-taught guitarist, so music theorists, please correct any mistakes I make in the comments below. But that E, I did an E diminished, I'm pretty sure, followed by an F major 7, and then back down. And I'm playing the melody, it goes 1, 3 octave. The classic Song of Storms, and if you played Ocarina of Time, you would know those notes pretty well. But where do you go from there? And I chose here to reharmonize, so I'm taking different chords from the same key, and still playing the same melody on top. It does give it a kind of different sound, different feel, but it still sounds like you're playing the Song of Storms. And of course, we're guitarists, we love our guitar solos, so I threw one in there. It's a great way to be creative over the chord progression. I went back to the original one. Your solo is going to be even better too if you follow the guidelines from the melody. Have callbacks to it, things like that. Follow good solo writing procedures. Don't go too crazy. Don't drive off the audience. Maybe you're playing an experimental jazz gig, in which case, go crazy. It never hurts to be melodic and deliberate. And so from there, if I was going to expand this into a full song, I would start to experiment with other tones. Maybe more clean tones, some effects. There's phaser, there's chorus, delay. And these tones are great to spice things up because especially with some of the older songs, they were limited by the hardware. They could only have so many voices. So in a way, we're studying what the same kind of music sounds like, but with different instruments. Whether they played it on a synth or they had some specific 8-bit chip, 16-bit chip, etc. Maybe they had a pre-recorded orchestra, which also brings some good questions too, because you can think about if there's this whole orchestrated piece from a game and you're writing for maybe 2 guitars, a bass, keyboards, maybe just you have to think about what you're going to pick to incorporate into this song, into your cover. Or if you're just learning it, you have to pick which lead lines, which melodies you want to learn. And so basically we're learning songs that aren't necessarily made for guitar. I know there's a lot of video game soundtracks that do have guitar in it, but there's a lot that don't. And if we're playing it on guitar or maybe the instrument of your choice, it can show us what different instruments sound like, what their strengths and weaknesses are. You can even learn other instruments too in the process. It's a great excuse to pick up something you wouldn't normally play. Yeah, I think I'll stick to guitar. And then talking about covering too, you can learn a lot about the licensing process. Now, I can only speak about the laws and releasing covers within the United States, but I've learned so much in my quest to release my video game music covers. I've learned about mechanical licenses, there needing to be a United States release. I've learned about music distributors like DistroKid, TuneCore, etc. Not sponsored by any of them, by the way. And I'm not a lawyer too, so be sure to do your own research. So what are my overall thoughts on this? Well, covering video game music has taught me a lot about music writing, songwriting, arranging. It's helped me step outside the comfort zone of my guitar playing things that weren't meant for guitar. And it's really been fun and rewarding taking some of my favorite songs and reimagining them, playing them on guitar instead of through a synth or a musical chip. Of course, I have thrown in synth into my arrangements. That's always fun. And of course, it's taught me about all the processes for releasing cover songs. I think since video game music is the soundtrack of you, your audience will have a positive reaction if they know the song. And of course, more people than ever have played video games. So if you're thinking about covering some video game music and releasing it, go for it. But what are your thoughts? What do you think about VGM? Do you think it's pretty cool and fun to play? Or is it just not for you? Be sure to comment down your thoughts down below. Of course, you can continue the discussion on my Discord. And beyond that, I have to say the YouTube thing, so be sure to subscribe. Like the video, share it, print out every frame and mail it. Check out the Patreon, do a backflip, and as always, peace.